I flew all the way to Chicago to interview Robert Marshall. If you haven't heard of Robert, I'm sure you have heard of the product that he helped found, Source Connect. In voiceover, Source Connect allows studios to connect with one another. So as a voiceover talent, I can do all the performing, and the other studio can do all the recording and engineering. When I got the word that Source Connect was coming up with a new version, I had to get the scoop on it. So I went to Chicago to interview Robert. But first, we sat down and had some food. He took me to one of Chicago's hidden treasures. I'm a Source Connect user and a Windows user, so I really want to know what's the big difference. I'm Dane Reid. I'm here with Robert Marshall from Source Connect, and we're going to talk about all that's new with Source Connect. So check us out. All right, so I'm back. I'm actually here in Chicago, chatting it up with Robert about what's going on with Source Connect, because there are some big changes that are coming, some really exciting changes, and I came all the way up here just to talk to him about, what voice actors can expect in the coming year, in the coming weeks. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. Absolutely. I really appreciate you doing this interview. But I just want to jump right into it, right? Like, what's going on with Source Connect and what's so exciting about Source Connect going on?
So Source Connect has been out since 2005, and essentially the foundation that it was built on up until now has all been the same software, tweaked in new versions. And with the pandemic, we just learned so much about how the industry is working, and they were using our software a lot, but it used to be a session would be a remote talent, or maybe the clients were remote. And after the pandemic, everything was remote
Right.
clients, remote talent. So we kind of started fresh on what version 4 was. We had literally been developing it slowly, and we scrapped it all. And so as of 2021, 2020, at some point we're starting over, and that's Source Connect 4 now.
Okay. And there's been 3.9 and 3 for Mac users and 3.8 for Windows users.
Right. For forever ago.
Right.
Because it was each, prior to that it was 3.0, a year later 3.1, a year later. So 3 sounds like one number, but all the dot versions were 10 years.
So what's the big difference between the 3.9, 3.8, and the 4.0? What's the difference?
So technically the sort of foundation of it is now ready for a lot more, and immediately it just modernizes some things that before were, I shouldn't say modernizes, but just allows for newer techniques. So the original version of Source Connect just required port forwarding, which is a way of directing the traffic directly to your computer, and it's still a very ideal way to do the networking, but it's not always possible, or it's not great for being on the road where you're not really
like traveling.
You're not in control of your network there.
Right, and actually, port forwarding can be kind of sketchy even when it comes to your local internet provider. Trust me on this one.
Right, you can't, like some internet service providers no longer are even providing what is a direct connection to the public internet. They're putting you through their little walled garden and then letting you out to the internet, and that's just the way things are done now. So Source Connect 3 initially had a version or had a feature called Source Stream, but that wasn't available in the 3.8 version, which was where Windows got a lap behind the Mac version, and so for all these reasons it was not available in Windows. With 4.0, that's all caught up. It has Source Stream across the board, and it can do a port forwarded connection, but doesn't rely on it so much anymore. And that's just kind of, the way it is these days. Like, early on when you bought an internet connection, you were buying a house on the street called internet. But now when you buy an internet connection, you're really buying an apartment on a building that's on the house called, or the street called internet. You're no longer, because there's so many more devices and customers out there, and so in a modern context you can't rely on port forwarding as much.
So for 4.0, for us talent, like, the big thing is we're not pegged to our homes anymore. Right? Like,
correct.
So for a guy like me who travels,
right?
yeah, like I can
be in Bali or something like that, and I don't have to worry about the technical aspect as much.
Exactly.
Right. So it simplifies things for us.
Simplifies the licensing, the networking.
Explain the licensing part also, because that's another big deal.
Yeah. So Source Connect was originally designed for two studios to connect with each other, and then it became popular with talent getting their own license. And so studios and engineers use a system called iLock to license all their software. And they might have literally 50 or more plugins, all from different manufacturers that use the iLock system. Whereas a voice talent gets Source Connect, and that might be the only interaction they have with the iLock system.
Okay.
So another thing to learn, another thing to deal with. And so 4.0 gets rid of the iLock process because
awesome.
We've been able to kind of create our own, we were licensing that from another company because we weren't smart enough at the time. 10 years, 20 years later, we're able to build that aspect of it ourselves. And so now the licensing is just more directly through us and not through a third party that we hire. And I'm pretty sure no audio engineer will worry about it. Like, oh, damn, I can't use iLock. There actually might be a few that would rather it, because they have all their licenses in one place. But for us, it's better for the voice talent and everybody that it doesn't have to use iLock. It's a little bit easier mainly for the voice talent.
Okay. So transitioning from 3.8 or 3.9 to 4.0, what does that look like? So does everyone have to have 4.0? Does everyone?
Yeah. So you need 4.0 on both sides of the connection to connect with 4.0.
Okay.
Everybody who has a 4 license will have a 3 license.
Okay.
So on the initial transition, I imagine like the day we release 4, people will still be booking sessions over 3, and there might in the first year be a little bit of a conversation. Oh, Source Connect, version 3 or version 4.
Right.
And then as a voice talent, you'll know, like, launch the old one, launch the new one, and over time you'll just be more and more using the new one.
Okay.
4.0. In a pinch, we're going to provide a bridge, which is basically a connection to a connection. If for some reason someone can't run 4.0, or they have to run 4.0, so imagine you're a voice talent on the road, 3.8's not great with forwarding, so you want to use 4.0 because now you don't have to worry about your networking on the road, but your clients are using 3. We're going to provide for at least 6 months a year. I'm not sure how long the transition period will be, but we'll provide bridges, if necessary, for those situations. But ideally, if it's 3, both sides use 3. If it's 4, both sides use 4. In a few unique situations, we'll have a bridge to let one side run 3 and the other side run 4. And then it'll all go away in a couple of years and everyone will be on 4.
Okay, so there's the transition period between 3.8, 3.9 to 4.0. How does that affect the talent who have already purchased 3.8, 3.9 to 4.0? Is it going to be, is it automatic? Do you have to buy into 4.0? How does that going to work?
Yeah, a couple things. So anybody subscribing, they get 4.0 without anything. It's just because you're with a subscription, you're just current by nature. If you have a buy-in license, then depending on how, like Source Connect Standard comes with 6 months of support, and if you purchased whenever 4.0 drops, which is probably going to be September, if you bought it fresh within 6 months of there, you're just going to get 4. If you bought it before then and your support contract has no gaps in it, you'll just get 4. And if you bought it before then and you have some gaps in your support contract, you'll either be able to backfill the missing months or pay a one-time update with whatever's less expensive. And then once you have 4, everything's the same except for one thing, which is before the support and light and network access and everything it was there, but we never made anybody buy it. It was you were supposed to do it, but it just wasn't enforced. So with 4.0, it's going to be required. So if you have a buy-in license, the price doesn't change. It's still $105 a year, and you're going to be on what's called the legacy plan, and that's going to be the least that anybody pays.
Okay.
But the day that Source Connect 4 drops, then anybody who buys in, the maintenance on standard is not going to be $105 a year, it's going to be $145 a year.
Okay.
So all the legacy people pay $105, just like it was since 2005.
Right.
And then, but from that day forward, there's a little price bump.
Okay.
Because we've never increased our prices.
Sound like
except for once. I think we did do one, like way back in 2007, we did have one price bump, but we basically haven't, like, through inflation and everything, we haven't changed it. And that's fine. We don't want to basically change the deal on anybody who did it.
Who bought it,
initially.
right. Exactly. That's pretty awesome because a lot of companies will.
So I want to interrupt this interview because while I was at dinner with Robert, he told me a lot of things that weren't included in the interview. So a lot of times as voiceover talent, we think, wow, we already bought into Source Connect, for instance. And so why do they charge us like, a fee for like maintenance every year? Like, oh, if we want like customer service or anything like that. And he explained to me the cost of maintaining Source Connect. And from a business standpoint, it makes total sense. Like, in order to keep running this network, they need to charge in order to do that, in order to stay in business. The other thing that Robert explained to me was the sacrifices that they made in order to make Source Connect even come to market, right? So they had this idea, this concept, but it was expensive. It was incredibly expensive to bring to market. And I think a lot of times people don't think about what the expenses are to bring something like this to voice actors and to studios. It was incredibly interesting. Now back to the interview.
Yeah, there's certain things that you just have to do to like maintain relevance, and it's like I can tell stories about how trying to maintain staff and like, oh, the pandemic, let's get a whole bunch of people. Oh, everyone you're just like on this roller coaster. So yeah, there's a fair amount of people kind of like to get upset about subscriptions and things like that, and it's not really a subscription in the sense that it's just the network and the maintenance of the whole ecosystem. For instance, someone buys in, but we still have a whole series of servers across the world. And also what happens is that, especially now with less port forwarding, Source Connect usually tries to make what's called as the bird flies through the internet connection with port forwarding. But now, without requiring port forwarding, the chances are way higher that all the data goes through our servers, which is basically like your phone bill. There's going to be a data charge that we have, and so all that stuff, it just becomes a live service more than just a software that runs completely isolated between two people. So those are the things that it's there for.
So you mentioned that you learned a lot during the pandemic, and people working remotely. I was really very interested in what 4.0 has to offer for ADR.
Sure. So it's going to have the same feature set that 3.0 had in terms of remote transport sync. It's going to be using current technology. Remote transport sync originally in 3 used Rewire. Propeller Heads, who made Rewire, they just stopped making it, so that protocol is gone. It's going to go back to like a modified setup with timecode, so it'll still be very easy to set up, but it's not going to rely on a third party that went away on us.
Right.
But also, that's just with 4.0. As 4.1, 2, we have a whole list of things that now, because it's re-platformed, we can really kind of build on. And you'll see what's called a timeline that's designed specifically for doing dialogue replacement sessions. So for the engineer, it's going to set up the cues, like the beeps and the wipes that you see. It'll set those up automatically for the engineer.
So it'll have the video component.
It will.
Awesome.
Two aspects to video. Like 4.0 on initial release won't have video.
Okay.
I don't know exactly which version 4.1, 4.2, but you'll see just your camera, so you can see your clients can see you. And then secondly, we're going to have the program that you're working against. That as a streaming option, or also as a video lock option, because there's sort of those two ways to work remotely. You can stream the video to the talent and then get it back, or you can have the video on the talent system and you can control it.
I'm a PC guy. I'm super excited about all of the things that are coming to PC world. So have you guys thought about the compatibility with ARM on PC, for example?
Kind of. I think it's inherently built in. So with Source Connect 3, literally it was a whole separate construction to make the Windows version as the Mac version. And that's how we ended up in that situation where over time the Windows version ended up literally a whole lap behind because, you know, as you know, probably 80% of the post-production industry is Mac.
Yeah.
So every time there was something to fix, something to do, it was Mac first. And then it was like, oh, well, they got a month ahead. They got 2 months ahead.
Right.
Eventually it was like a whole version behind.
Right.
So when we made for the development platform that it's built on is not so like now we can build it for one and get it for all versions like as part of one output instead of having to like hand make the PC version separate from the Mac version. So we shouldn't end up in that situation where one becomes behind the other because it's one cohesive effort instead of two teams trying to make the same thing. So hopefully that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And also within that, because that's it's like a company that we pay that we use their platform to make the software. So I assume that just like with Apple when they came out with the M1 chip, now we're able to render the software for the M1 chip, and we didn't have to re-engineer it. We just did our work within their environment and it gets made for M1.
Right.
The same thing should happen for Windows. As long as it's a Windows supported chip, it should, you know, like they come out with the X9924 chip.
Yeah.
And that's something that Windows supports, then the platform that we use to build should just have that in it.
Listen, I'm excited. I'm ready to give you my money. So when
You think September?
Okay.
Yep. It's you know, if you talk to our CEO, she's like, you know, when will your baby be born?
Yeah.
It's like the day it's born. But we're pretty sure September. You know, officially it's ready when it's ready.
Right.
It's at this point we're able to get her at least to let us say that date, that month. We don't know what day in September.
Okay. Okay.
But I don't think it's going to be. I don't think we're going to miss it. I'm pretty sure we're going to hit September.
Yeah. You know, listen, I got a chance to see the demonstration of it, and yeah, I mean, I really am excited about this. Being able to have the freedom to travel and do sessions and then get back to where I am, that's like incredible for me. And I think for a lot of voiceover talent, particularly since the pandemic, where we're not going into, you know, sessions as much through studios and everything like that. We're at home, we're wherever we are. And, you know, we want to get back to our lives. So I think this is incredible.
Yeah, hopefully it's less to think about, just more open and go. For Windows people, it's going to catch up on all those features that you were always having, like, oh, I don't have that. Like now you have auto restore, auto replace.
Yeah.
Didn't have that on Windows before. You have the source stream option, which deals with the network built in. Now, have you ever done sessions where you have another actor and you're kind of like bouncing against each other?
I have.
So, but those would come up, and previously that was kind of a setup for the engineer. You'd have to have like literally 2 copies of Source Connect. So now Source Connect 4 will handle the conference built in, which will now keep the latency low, but let the engineer record everyone separately, kind of giving the best of both worlds. That's built into it, and just a whole lot more will just kind of, the video will show up hopefully shortly after, and hopefully what you're seeing with 4.0 compared to 3, where, you know, Windows was like the version for years and years. Hopefully with 4.0, it's if we get our ideal, it's, you know, every quarter, new version, new feature. We're on a better schedule with that. So that's our our goal to keep on kind of amping it up a notch every quarter, ideally. So, yep.
I'm really excited. I really thank you for doing this interview.
Absolutely.
If you like this, definitely subscribe, hit the like button. You know, I always want to bring you guys content that's relevant to the voiceover industry and sit down and talk with some amazing people who are making things happen. And you are definitely, you and Source Connect, your whole team are definitely doing something that's really important for us on the audio side. That's, important. So I thank you for that. And also, come to DaneReidMedia.com and also keep checking with Source Connect. What's the website that people should?
Source-elements.com, so source-elements.com.
So check with them to make sure that you are on the latest version of Source Connect. And guys, I'm gonna check you later. Peace out.
I thank Robert for giving me this interview. I'm extremely excited about Source Connect 4.0, and thanks for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next interview.